This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
I always say that this podcast is having great conversations with friends. And today I'm lucky enough to have my best friend join me. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, good morning, Lucy.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, good. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are?
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm just excited to have a Saturday morning coffee with you. And even though we're so far away, I just love the opportunity to connect. So I'm a mom. I work for a chemical distribution company. I'm on the corporate accounts team, and I've kind of had a long career with the same company. So I think that it's a comfortable place to be. It's like being at home. And I think that in this journey, as you and I've spoke about, I'm all about the comfortable things. So I'm excited to talk to you about things that'll kind of stretch me a little bit and move forward and just become who I'm supposed to be. So I'm a mom. I've got 2 amazing kiddos. I've got a crazy dog. I've got like an awesome husband. We live in Edmonton, Alberta. We've got a place out in Nova Scotia, which is kind of close to my heart and close to you. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So it was 2 weeks ago, we were texting back and forth. And now we've been friends, close friends for about 6 years, I think we figured out. We met living where we were in Nova Scotia. Our kids knew each other at school. And it wasn't until you moved away and started visiting back that we became friends. And we just got closer and closer. And I was thinking about it this morning. Whenever we see each other, it's always with our families. I don't think we've ever really hung out, just you and I.
Very rarely. It's always had either a kid or a husband or a group with us.
And that's why, because when I was thinking about when you brought up the course you were taking, Limitless, I thought we had never really had in-depth conversations about our own personal hopes, dreams, goals as women.
For sure. I agree with that. And I think that COVID has really changed the world. It's changed the day-to-day that we're living in, and it's really changed me. It's given me to really pause and say, what do I want to be when I come out of this? Everyone talks about coming back to normalcy, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go back to the way it was. And so I've loved the conversations that you and I have had about, it's almost like a kid conversation. Who do you want to be when you grow up? And it's a Lisa and Lucy conversation about who do you want to be when we come out of this? And I love that. And I had the amazing opportunity to attend a conference a year ago in Calgary, and it was called The Art of Leadership for Women. And there was an amazing speaker there called Laura Gassner Otting, and she's kind of been in touch with her on social media and signed up for her emails. I've read her book, and she's found that COVID also was a pivot point for her, that she needed to figure out a way to connect with people and do something different. So she started an online class called Limitless, and there's videos every week. And as I was going through it, I was talking to you about how cool it was. And I thought, Lucy, I think that it would be amazing for you to join this platform too, and just kind of figure out who LGO is. And maybe we could, kind of look at this. I could share with you. And you went through, you looked at it, you signed up. And I love our time together doing our homework on Sunday mornings and just growing together. It's like the coolest thing.
I know. And it's given us a new way to connect. And I just want to backtrack. When I looked at the course, I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, this is really interesting. There's parts of it I've already sort of covered myself, but there's new areas it's going to push me in. And I was looking at it. And then I did the thing that I think so many women do, is I looked at the price and thought, should I really spend that on myself right now?
Right.
And then I'm like, fuck yes. Yes, I am. Because so often, and I've heard this from other women, is that we don't put those things at the forefront for ourselves.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think it's interesting that you make that point is it worth it? Should I spend this money right now? And I look at, the guys and my husband, and I don't think he would have thought twice about spending, just that. And it really, in the scheme of things, a small amount of money, he wouldn't have thought twice about it the same way that we do.
Yeah, I know. And so I sort of slapped my hand on the wrist and I'm like, okay, that's it. I've signed up. Let's do this. And let's talk every week. So we had our first homework session last Sunday.
Yeah.
And the things that we were talking about, one, we'd never spoken about them between each other to that depth before. But I also realized that a lot of the things that we were saying, other women or anybody would want to hear the same thing. Because for me, for a long portion of this self-discovery journey that I've been on, I felt very alone. I thought that I was the only one that had these feelings or struggled with these things. And what I found is the more I'm authentic and I share my story and I share my truths, the more stories I'm hearing coming back with people saying, oh my God, I feel just like that.
For sure. And it's interesting. I don't think we typically talk about ourselves that way. I think we try to put on this armor around us and say, wow, I'm a strong mom. I'm a strong wife. I can get through this shit and I'm going to be good. And we kind of make other people look at us with those rose-colored glasses. And I don't know why it's so hard to be authentic, to be genuine, and to be flawed. There's nothing wrong with it, but we're so scared to share that.
I know. And like a pivotal point for me, like about this, is when I made that transition from Nova Scotia back to Ottawa. And It was a really, really shitty time for me. And I was so scared to let anyone know how bad off I was. I didn't even tell you.
No, I know.
That's how scared I was. But out of that, that pain, and I called it, I was scraping the bottom of shit barrel. It was from that I found a new version of myself. And from there, I've just been, one foot in front of the other, stepping and stepping and stepping. And I look back, that was what, 2.5 years ago? Actually, no, getting on for 3. I look back and I cannot believe the person I am now versus the person I was then. And a lot of it is the daily practice that I've created for myself, but also to stop being afraid to share my truths.
It's hard to be vulnerable. I know that's kind of the new buzzword now about being truly vulnerable as a woman. And I don't like it. It's hard for me. And it's interesting, like we can go back and see where you and I met and just how far we've come along in our friendship journey just by being authentic and being vulnerable. I was more concerned about, oh my goodness, Lucy and Jeff are coming, like, clean the house, put on some makeup, it had to be perfect. It had to look perfect. And that really comes from how I was raised. And now, honestly, I don't know. And it's just been through this COVID thing. I don't give a shit if the house is dirty. I don't give a shit if my hair is not done. It doesn't matter because the people that are my people, they don't care.
Yeah.
But able to get to that point, like I tell you, it's been a freaking uphill climb to be okay with being vulnerable.
I was having actually, it was the last podcast I was with Sarah Gregg, and I made reference to, the vulnerability is you feel like you're standing naked in front of the world.
Yeah.
And to share your deepest feelings at that level, it is really hard. But once you start to do it, it becomes, once you step out of that comfort zone, it becomes easier and easier. then of course you
Absolutely.
get comfortable with that. So then you have to go and find another comfort zone to break out of.
But those baby steps, I think, are super important. And I think it's okay, like, to do it little bits at a time. And I think that step one, expressing vulnerability and telling people, like, hey, this is who I really am, like it or not. And if you don't, that's okay. Like, maybe you're just not my people. And that's okay. Not everybody has to be my people. You don't have to please everybody.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, like, for me, it sort of reinforced when I started watching, I always get it wrong, Little Fires Everywhere.
Right?
When I started watching that, I'm like, okay, so even more people than I thought are in this situation. And I think the character played by Reese Witherspoon, which she said something about, one day I just woke up and my life was, one day you wake up and your life is settled. You know who you are, or at least you think you do.
That is so funny that you mentioned that, because I literally just started binge watching that during this COVID at home. And that exact line that she said hit me in the face like a bag of bricks. I looked around and I was like, that is the freaking truth right there. You do. You wake up and it's like, how did I get here? And this is just what it is. It's settled. And I think you can either, when you have that realization, choose that it's settled and that's it. This is going to be my little bubble, my little life forever. I'm going to have the same job. I'm going to have the same house. My kids are going to go do this. And it's just pre-established and set. Or you can step out and you can be like, I want something different. And that's scary as fuck, to want something different.
It is, especially when what you're seeing around you, you're completely going against the grain. I was raised by a stay-at-home mom, very sort of, we're British, so very British upbringing. And you were raised that you were going to get married, you're going to buy a house, you're going to have kids, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And we start down that journey without really questioning why you're doing it, or if that's even what you want. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that it wasn't what I wanted, but I forgot to ask myself along the way, or I didn't even realize I should have asked myself along the way, what do I want? I just kept doing. It is like, you get up every day, it's, the alarm, you get ready, you go to work, you do this, you do that. And then suddenly, whatever the catalyst is for it, you suddenly are like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And you're so far down the road and you look back and every day's been the same, and that's just the way it's supposed to be. And it's funny, like, you and I chatted about this, I think probably last week. We had a little chit chat about it. And I said, like, I've been raised kind of the same way. It's like, what do people think? And I was talking with Delaney the other day and I said, my mom and my dad, mostly my mom, was always worried about what people thought. Like, we weren't even allowed to order like pizza delivered to the house because she would say, oh my God, the neighbors all think I'm not cooking for you. And I'm like, who the fuck actually cares? Like, we just want pizza. So that's ingrained in me about, you always have to worry about what people think. And I never had that big conversation with my own daughter about, is this really what you want? Or are you just doing your school and choosing this career path because you think it's what's going to make everyone around you happy? So I had that conversation with her, and thank Jesus she has thought about it more than I have in my life. And she had some pretty good, compelling reasons for why she's going to school, why she wants to be a dentist, and what she wants to do with that. And I thank you so much, Lucy, for prompting me to even ask her, because it's so easy to get stuck in that every day. The alarm rings, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, you go to work, and then you look back and it's like, wow, my life is already set.
Yeah. And then for me, it was, I did what the character did in Little Fires Everywhere. I didn't literally burn my house down, but a lot of people would say, and I think you asked me one day, you're like, are you sure this is actually what you want? And I knew you thought I was crazy. I knew you didn't get it because I never told you stuff.
Well, I didn't have the whole story, and it did. Honestly, on the outside looking in, man, it looked a little freaking crazy.
You and Paul must have been like, what has Lucy done? She's like off the deep end. And to most people, that's exactly what it looked like. But I think in a way, that is a bit of my style, going out in a blaze of glory, bull in a china shop. That's just how I go. I don't regret it, but it was necessary. For me, it was necessary.
I'm so freaking happy for you, and I admire you for being able to do that. Like, those are some big balls that you had while you were burning your house down, man. I think, I think it's admirable. And I didn't get it because we didn't talk about it. And on the outside looking in, it did look a little crazy, but I'm so freaking proud of you now, girl. You making strides, and you're changing the world. No, don't cry. And you are a freaking awesome role model for my kids and your kids and me. Like, I look up to you and I'm like, wow, it's kind of like, what would Lucy do in this situation?
Oh God. You were talking about Delaney and how, you had the conversation with her, I guess with our boys. Well, Liam, I think he was pretty much had his career planned when he was 3.
Yeah.
And I know why he wants to do it. And he loves film. He loves film production. And he's taking a new angle at it by involving, he's now going to business school so he can know both the creative and the business side of film.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in there. And Ethan, it took him a little while to figure out what he wants, but he's starting his photography program. But we've always sort of taught our kids, life is about the journey, but when it comes to your career, your work, don't necessarily think of it as a job. Look at revenue streams where you can make money doing what you love.
Absolutely.
That 9 to 5 isn't for everybody. Some people love it and they thrive it. We tend to be a lot more, we're creative people. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, I've never been good with rules, but rules and structures don't always work because it can stifle your creativity. So, I'm envious that they're still quite young and they get it.
Well, and I think that's remarkable. That's the thing about school and just, the normal path that everyone's expected to look at. How the frick are these kids supposed to know what they want to be when they grow up? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And they need to decide, like, society tells them by grade 9, by grade 10, you have to know what you want to be. You've got to take the right courses. You've got to be ready to get into university if that's what you choose to do. And no kid at that age is ready to know what they want to do. And society pushes that you've got to have a post-secondary education or you're not going to get a job. And I just don't buy that bullshit anymore. I think that as long as you follow your bent and what you were created to do, if you listen to that and you every day can do something that you love, you're going to be successful doing that. You're not going to be successful going against the grain.
Yeah. And I think part of it, when we look at our education system, we're still running an education system based on like 19th century living.
100%.
When it comes to, basically training people to fall in line and follow the rules and go work at the factory, go work in a cubicle, where it pushes us to be those sheep,
100%.
And even down to when the kids are in high school and they have to get their 2 sciences, they have to get their English and they have to get their this many maths and all of these things. And I'm like, okay, but in all of that, they only need to take 1 art credit.
Right.
or, I think they need like one gym credit. So all the focus is on math and sciences and English class, and none of the focus is on self-development, creativity, and I always joke because Liam, forever the artist, I would get complaints from his teachers, his like academic classes, that he wouldn't be paying attention. He'd be doodling in his books. And I'm like, well, yeah, Liam lives in Liam land. He's a creative. And I would say to them, I said, it's funny. Math teachers and English teachers will always tell you if your child's grade is not good enough. But how many kids get the art teacher calling them saying, hey, this person's not focusing enough time on being creative?
Well, and I think though that there can't be any hard and fast rules about that, because I look back, Jackson and I, my son's graduating grade 12, like he's just finished school this week, and we were talking about grade 1, and the music teacher, he had excellent marks in his grade 1, and I put all this cred into his grade 1 report card, and he had a shitty mark in music. And I'm like, how the fuck can you get a bad mark in music? So I wanted to talk to the teacher, because I thought, well, maybe he's just like screwing around, and maybe he's not doing what he's supposed to. Maybe he's acting out. So I talked to his grade 1 teacher and said, what's going on in music? And she's like, I don't know. Like, Jackson would never fool around. Like, he's very good at following the rules. Like, they can't be grading on pitch or anything. Like, let me get the music teacher. And I talked to her, and that's what it was. She was grading them on fucking pitch in grade 1. I was just like, this is mind-boggling. But then we go to the Christmas concert. Like, music just wasn't Jackson's thing, and that's okay. But, they kind of try to pre-mold these kids even in grade 1. But we go to the Christmas concert, and there he is, like, singing Silent Night, playing freaking air guitar, and sucking another kid down the vortex of parent shame at the Christmas concert, where they're both air guitaring to Silent Night. And I was like, okay, maybe he is screwing around in music class.
They are who they are. They are who.
And I think it's so important. If I could go back, I would have encouraged them more to be who they were meant to be, like to follow that bent, not to try and excel in all the things and what are people going to think, and we shan't order a pizza tonight because the neighbors will know I didn't cook again. I think if I could go back, I would change it. I think Delaney's on the right path. She's always been a little more stubborn. I think Jackson's still trying to figure it out, and before that would have drove me crazy, but now that's okay. Like, figure it out,
And in some ways, Ethan has a very extreme form of dyslexia.
Yes.
So in some ways, it was actually quite a blessing for him, because it allowed me as a parent to say to teachers, you know what, not every kid has to be good at math. Not every kid has to be good at science. Let him excel at what he's good at. And you know what? If he just gets a passing grade for grade 10 math, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. As long as he's happy and he's learning what he wants to learn, then leave the kid alone.
Yeah. I wish we did more of that in society, and as parents and as moms and as women. I think you had it right, Lucy, and your kids are fabulous.
Thank you. I'm not always such a good mom. There are way too many pizza boxes in my recycling box.
Oh my gosh, what do your neighbors think?
No, I'm just thankful that our wine bottles, you have to take them back to the store to recycle and not at the end of the driveway. Because that's when the neighbors would get all judgy on you.
Judgy. Oh, well, we haven't been for quite a while. So, Jackson will take him in for me, because I just can't face the shame of how much wine there is.
Well, see, no, with the whole COVID thing right now, it's a total cover story, because I don't even think you could bring back your empties for 3 months. So
No,
I'm going
well,
to go
no,
with that.
it's true. I think the difference might be going to the liquor store to buy the liquor, and she looks at me like, we're supposed to be social distancing, you know, you're not supposed to have that many people at your house. Like, are you having a party? And I'm like, oh no, I'll see you on Wednesday. Don't be surprised. Like, why do you make the conversation all the time? You know, I'm going to be back in 2 days.
Yeah, it's like, geez. Well, no, actually, you get air miles at the liquor store here. But
We do as well.
if you buy it at the grocery store, you don't get like points on that, which I think is very disappointing. I think they
Aw.
should.
We should change that
I would
rule.
eat for free if I got PC points for buying my wine at the grocery store. Oh, geez. So going back to the Limitless course, because I think it's a really great program for anybody that wants to start to figure things out. If they've gotten that nudge, that whisper, they've got like you said, you're like, I'm not sure I want to go back to this.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good program. And you said she started off, you read her book.
I did. So LGO, that's what she goes by, Laura Gassner Otting. She actually started off, she was predisposed, like she was supposed to be a lawyer. From grade 3, she was supposed to be a lawyer, and that was that. Because a grade 3 teacher told her, wow, aren't you a very argumentative little girl? Like, I think you should be a lawyer. And so since grade 3, that's kind of, you know, in her story, that's what she knew she was supposed to do. And so she had quite a great career. She did drop out of law school because she said, you know what, this isn't for me. She worked at the White House. She was involved in politics. She started her own company. And it's just always been something that was pulling on her, she said, to help people, to do something more. And I think that when you get so busy and life just goes and you do that, alarm goes off, you get up, you go to work, and you don't have time to think about things or ask yourself, is this really what I want? So COVID has been a pretty good catalyst for me to slow down and listen to those nudges. So I did. It was just bizarre that I finally did get on one of her webinars, and it just, so what's the worst that's going to happen? If I don't like it, I can just hang up or get out of the webinar. And everything that she said, it was hitting me. And I'm like, this is something that I have to do. Like, it's time to find a different path, find a different way to do things. And it's been a really great journey. It's hard work. I don't like peeling back the layers like an onion and looking at what's on the inside and some of the choices I've made. But I think that you have to do that to move forward and inspire other people, like even people that you meet at the grocery store, your kids, your coworkers, your husband. You have to do that hard work. And I'm so excited that I started this course. It's been amazing. And I'm so glad that you were at the same place in your journey where you said, yeah, you know what, this might be the right thing for me too, to kind of investigate and dig in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find what's hard about it is you have to be honest with yourself. There's lies that you've told yourself over the years. Oh, I'm doing this because of this, or I don't have time because I'm busy doing that. And I think the concept of being busy was the biggest eye-opener over the shutdown for me, because I realized how much time I was wasting being busy on dumb stuff. Like, how many times would I get up on a Saturday and Jeff looks at me and he's like, oh, so what are we doing today? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we got to go to Costco, and then we're going to go to the Superstore, and then we got to do this. And like at least one day of the weekend, we were spent running around doing dumb shit.
Yeah. Just
for what reason? And when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not spending the time I should be spending on, you know, growing the podcast, or, you know, actually starting to write my book and my course and doing all of these things, because I was scared.
Nailed it.
It's really easy for somebody, you know, on the outside looking in going, you know, oh my God, she's got to have all this confidence. She's doing a podcast. She's doing this. She's doing that. And I'm like, no, I still get nervous every time I turn the mic on and start talking. even though for me, talking is really never been a problem. I'm sure a few of my teachers would add to that comment. Talking and communicating is always been there. But knowing that what you're doing is then going to be put out into the world for anybody to judge and criticize, that's a scary thing.
That is scary, for sure. I think that we use busy as a cover, just like because we don't want to feel. We can use this. If you ask 10 people, how was your week? I guarantee 8 of them will say, oh, so busy, so busy. How's
You're
work?
fine.
So busy.
Fine.
Or fine. Yeah. And it's just, I think we use that as a crutch. It's easier to be busy than it is to feel. And I laugh because we were doing the same stuff constantly on the go, a to-do list, miles long, and all that shit didn't matter. Like,
no, and with the shutdown, you didn't have a choice.
Exactly.
You are just sitting there. And then I think for a while, the first few weeks, I think there was a certain level of shock because suddenly, it was withdrawal. You had to withdraw
Definitely.
from life. And our busyness is an addiction, a crutch, like you said. And when it was taken away, there was a certain amount of time to readjust to what life was. And suddenly you're realizing how much time there is in a day. And, it was slow. You have to start, filling in with different things that you actually want to be doing. And those things that you want to do, but you can't leave your house to do.
Right, exactly. No, I think it's game changing. And I look at some people who are addicted to that busy, and you see it on Instagram, you see it on Facebook, they're baking bread, they're knitting, they've picked up all these new things to do. And I think that they're still in that perpetual, I must be busy. I'm going to do 12 things today, and I'm going to reorganize the refrigerator. Just things to consistently stay busy. And I think that it's hard for people to sit down and tune into who they are, because I don't think as a whole we like ourselves very much, because we don't spend time developing ourselves and becoming someone I would like.
It's true. And I think, one of the reasons why people try to stay busy is that they don't want to listen to that little voice. They're afraid to listen to that little voice. And for me, in my experience, if you don't listen to the little voice, all of a sudden it's going to whack you over the head with a 2x4. And that's when I ended up burning the house down. So I think anybody that's taken the time to embrace the pause and look at themselves and look to grow, I think we're going to find, the more you and I talk about this, the more we're going to find other people doing the same thing.
So, and it's interesting to me, like, it's not even easy to talk about taking the course or, having meaningful, deep conversations with you. Like, even my husband, he's like, oh, like, you're getting on the phone with Lucy? Like, are you guys going to have like coffee and Bailey's? And that's kind of it. And I'm like, no, we're actually on a course. Like, we're doing our homework. And it was just the look on his face. He was like, what? And it was kind of judgy. And I think he thought it was crazy, but he's supportive now. But even to tell him that we're not going to just have coffee and Bailey's, that we're doing stuff for ourselves, it was awkward to tell him, and his reaction was awkward. I don't know why. That's so weird.
No, but you know what? I had a conversation with Jeff the other day, because 99% of the time I work from home, but I have an office. It's the other side of town, so it's a pain in the ass to get to. And I said, I'm going to start going to the office more often, not for my day job, but to work on my stuff. And the other day, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, I'm going to go into the office tomorrow. He goes, oh, maybe I'll come with you. And I was like, no, I need some time for me. And he didn't get it. He looked at me, he goes, you arsehole. And
Yeah.
not like in a joking way, but he thought I was being mean. And I think it was until the next day I had a conversation with him, and I'm like, look, when I'm at home, I'm like looking at the basket of laundry that's sitting beside me, because my bedroom is also my office. I've got the freaking Charlie running around like an idiot. You know, there's always something going on. And I'm worrying about if I go and get myself something to eat or a tea, oh, well, you know, I should make something for somebody else. And, oh, what am I going to do about dinner? Oh, I should just take this out of the freezer. And, oh, do I have this? I have zero capacity to focus on myself. So I said, when I go to the office, it's my time. There's nothing else I can do but focus on me.
Right. It's interesting. I love that you have to go away. You have to go into like a little closet to have that quiet, have that peace, so that you can have that time to yourself. I too have worked from home for a really long time. And I know like Paul would come home and he'd be like, well, didn't you work from home today? Because there's laundry everywhere, the dishes in the sink. And I'm like, yeah, but I worked. And he didn't quite get it until all of a sudden he's working from home. The kids are doing school from home. The capacity in my office, the headcount in my office quadrupled overnight when COVID started. I'm like, y'all need to get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, I know.
It's like
things about, even when Paul say, oh, well, I'm going to take the dog for a walk. Do you want to come? And at the beginning I was like, yeah, okay. No, I'm like, no, actually I don't. Like, it's going to be 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, where I can just be. And I don't want to sound like a bitch to him and be like, no, I don't want to come, but I just need to steal that time, that minute to breathe.
Yeah.
Focus on me. It's weird.
Yeah. And it's funny because most mornings, I would say at least 4 times a week, Jeff will get up and he'll go out in the car and he'll go for a drive and he takes his pictures and he does that.
Yeah.
And he's done something like that for years, on and off. You know, when we're in Nova Scotia, he would get up early and do his beach walk.
Right.
And I would sleep. I'd let him go do it, because I understood that was just his quiet time. That's how he processes and thinks and, you know, figures shit out for himself. And I said that to him. I'm like, but this is how you do it. So this is how I do it. And he's like, well, all you had to do was explain it to me.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I'm like, you never had to fucking explain it to me.
Right? No, it's true though. And I think that just the explanation to him or to Paul is what they need. And I'm like, we just intuitively figure it out. Like, oh, that's your time. You go take your time. But they're kind of dumb when it comes to that stuff.
God love them. God love them.
They need the roadmap. They need to know what it looks like and why.
It's probably because they half panic when we're not there, because they're like, oh my God, what do I do? Take care of me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This has been, I love this. So we're going to have to do it again.
Definitely.
We're going to have to do it again for sure when we get maybe further through our course and
let's do that. Let's do a check-in and see how we've grown. And if, you know, by the time we get to module 10, let's pick module 10 and let's do a refresh.
Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do one when we're in Nova Scotia, actually with each other.
That would be amazing. Oh, see, my
ever
a little bit.
If they ever open up the frickin' borders and let us in.
I know it.
So, okay, my poop chick.
All right. Thanks, girl. I hope you have a killer weekend.
Take care.
Anything down?
I won't.
Okay, don't do it without me. How about that?
Okay. No, we'll do it with fireworks in the fire again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like a roller coaster,